In the heart of Bavaria, Germany, back in 1922, there was a remote farmhouse called Hinterkaifeck. Surrounded by dense forest and a seemingly endless sea of snow, it was a place of isolation, home to the Gruber family. There was Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her two young children. Life on the farm was defined by a profound, almost heavy silence. They were used to it, but one day that silence started to change. It began to listen back. About a week before the tragedy that would make this farm infamous, Andreas Gruber made a chilling discovery. He found a single set of footprints in the fresh snow. They led directly from the edge of the forest to the farmhouse, but there were no footprints leading away. It was as if someone, or something, had simply appeared at their doorstep and vanished into the walls of their home. This was just the beginning. Soon after, the nights at Hinterkaifeck were no longer quiet. The family began to hear noises from the attic, slow, deliberate footsteps pacing back and forth, right above their bedrooms. It sounded like someone was walking across the floorboards, a heavy, dragging gait that seemed to go on for hours. Then, other strange things started happening. A set of house keys suddenly went missing. Tools from the shed would disappear and then reappear in odd places. One morning, a newspaper they had never subscribed to was found on their porch. The sense of being watched, of an unseen presence in their home, was becoming unbearable. The family maid, who had been with them for years, became so terrified by the nightly sounds and the oppressive atmosphere that she abruptly quit. She told people the house was haunted, that an evil presence had taken root there. She left, and just hours later, a new maid named Maria Baumgartner arrived to take her place. It would be her first and last day at Hinterkaifeck. Despite the growing fear, Andreas refused to leave. This was his home. He reported the strange occurrences to the local police, but when they investigated, they found nothing. No signs of a break-in, no intruder hiding in the shadows. The house was secure, the police left, and the Grubers were alone again. They tried to carry on with their daily chores to pretend that life was normal. But every night, the footsteps in the attic returned, a constant, terrifying reminder that they were not alone. The evening of March 31st, 1922, was a cold and stormy one. The air itself felt heavy with dread. On the farm, the animals were agitated. The cattle in the barn were restless, moaning and kicking at their stalls. The family dog, usually quiet, barked uncontrollably for hours, its frantic cries echoing into the night. Inside the house, the family huddled together, trying to ignore the chaos outside. But the real terror was about to begin inside. Victoria was the first to hear it, that familiar, dreaded sound. The slow, dragging footsteps from the attic started up again. But this time, something was different. The steps were heavier, slower, more deliberate. And then, the sound that froze the blood in their veins. The footsteps were no longer just in the attic. They were coming down the stairs. One by one, the family was lured out to the barn. First Andreas, then Cecilia, then Victoria, and finally her 7-year-old daughter. Each one met a brutal end, their lives extinguished in the hay-strewn darkness. Back in the house, the new maid, Maria, was killed in her bed, and the youngest child, 2-year-old Joseph, was murdered in his cot. And then, silence returned to Hinterkaifeck. A final, absolute silence. For days, no one noticed anything was wrong. The farm simply went on. Smoke continued to rise from the chimney, a comforting plume against the cold sky. The cattle in the barn were fed and milked. The dog was taken care of. From the outside, it looked as though the Gruber family was going about their business as usual. But the children missed school, the family missed church. Finally, a few neighbors decided to check on them. They called out, but no one answered. The farm was eerily quiet. Pushing open the door to the barn, they stumbled into a scene of unimaginable horror. The bodies of 4 family members lay there, covered with hay. The police were called immediately, and the full extent of the tragedy was soon discovered inside the house. But here is where the story takes its most bizarre and unsettling turn. The investigation revealed that whoever committed these murders did not flee. They stayed. For several days after the family was gone, someone lived in the house. They ate the food from the kitchen, they kept the fire going in the hearth, they tended to the livestock in the barn. They lived among the dead, carrying on the farm's daily routine as if nothing had happened. And then, after days of this ghostly occupation, they simply vanished, disappearing back into the forest as mysteriously as they had arrived, leaving behind no clues, no fingerprints, no trace of their identity. The police scoured the farmhouse for answers. The entire property was a crime scene, yet it offered more questions than clues. But in the attic, where the strange footsteps were first heard, they found something that sends a shiver down the spine. The hay on the attic floor was disturbed. In one corner, a section of hay was pushed aside, forming a small, hollowed-out space. It was the perfect size and shape for a person to lie down. It was a makeshift bed. It looked as if someone had been living up there for days, maybe even weeks, silently hidden in the darkness, watching and listening to the family that lived and slept just a few feet below. They were a part of the household long before that final, terrible night. Over the next 100 years, the Hinterkaifeck murders became Germany's most famous unsolved crime. The case has been reopened time and time again. Generations of detectives, investigators, and even modern forensic experts have pored over the evidence. Hundreds of suspects have been questioned, from jilted lovers to wandering vagrants and vengeful neighbors. Dozens of theories have been proposed, each one trying to explain the unexplainable. But none have ever been proven. The murder weapon, a pickaxe, was from the farm itself. But the killer or killers were never identified. The case remains officially unsolved. The farmhouse itself no longer stands. It was demolished a year after the murders, as if to erase the terrible memory from the landscape, but you can't erase a story like this. The ground where Hinterkaifeck once stood is now just an empty field, marked only by a small shrine, but the legend endures. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see, the ones who walk in the shadows of our own homes. The story of Hinterkaifeck is a story of footsteps that arrive out of the snow and never, ever leave. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as chilling as I did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown.